Our first question is that it seems many of the issues presented in the documentary are occurring because they're invisible to us Western consumers. With the coronavirus shining a bright light on globalization and the interconnectedness of our supply chains, how can we make people care about the problems that are happening halfway around the world?
Well, I'll chime in from the non-academic point of view. I think it's a very hard time to get people to care about problems that are not directly relating to them. As much as I would like to give an inspirational talk right now, I know for me, I have not seen The True Cost, but I did watch it this week to be prepared for the panel. I didn't see anything that was new information, but I did feel like it was a little heavy to watch right now. Just because we are there. I've talked to many students, many friends who are not qualifying for unemployment, have lost their jobs. I think people are really just in a space of focusing on them. And I think maybe as we come out of this, there's an opportunity. I do think there's an opportunity in people slowing down on their shopping because they are in save mode and having a realization of what we really need in life versus what we don't need in life. Which is we don't need new clothes every week. We don't need new clothes for every event. As we move more towards kind of like depression mentality from the Great Depression, like I think we may get clear about what we need and what we really don't need. That's kind of a depressing outlook, but I just know from what I've heard for a lot of people's mental health right now, they're really just trying to focus on the positive and not think about all those other things right now.
Dr. Helm, if you'd like to chime in, I see your hand.
Yeah, there's obviously many different perspectives to take in answering this question. I believe more than 80% of the Bangladeshi export, and it's an export-heavy country, is in apparel. And currently, with what's going on, nobody buys apparel. Yeah, all the orders have been, halted. Nobody's being paid, and all these workers whose lives and their life history and the hardship that we saw in that video, in that movie, they now have no work. And why I'm happy to commiserate with regard to what's going on in this country, and it's definitely hardship for many. It's probably quite surpassed by what's going on in countries such as Bangladesh. And so while I'm coming from this whole, let's reduce overconsumption perspective, that's wholeheartly what I would like to embrace. But currently, this sudden halt that does not permit for any change and transitioning into new business models or into new models in which people can actually make a living. It is terrifying. It is horrible. And that's why, I'm not entirely clear what the message is supposed to be. But saying, let's just stop buying stuff because that's not a good idea to begin with, omits that second perspective. So there need to be different mechanisms in order to make this a long-term transition that actually does not put the disadvantaged into further disadvantage. Because I don't think we even understand how bad the situation is in other parts of the world.
Thank you, Dr. Helm.
I think you're bringing up a very good point, and I'd like to articulate a little bit more about what's going on in Bangladesh, and then we can talk about how we can make people care about this. In the last month, the three biggest apparel purchasers, CNA, Primark, and Inditex, which owns Zara and a bunch of other brands, just between those three companies, they canceled $500 million worth of orders. In addition, they refused to pay for 91% of any materials and pre-production cost to the vendors, and 73% of all goods that have landed from Bangladesh into the United States have been refused payment. So the direct corollary effect is 1 million workers were immediately dismissed without any notice. So I think this is an opportunity for us to be a little bit empathetic, because when you look in your cupboards right now, we've had a chance to go shopping, we've stocked up, we have reserves, and we're still worried. Now imagine that you're a garment worker who's living on $2.35 a day, you have zero savings, and they just shut the doors on your factory and said, you're out of work and we're not reopening. For me, the effect of sustainability means that the downstream and the upstream effects need to be taken into account. And this casts a very clear light on the fact that large corporations around the world don't think sustainably about workforce or environment, because they easily dismiss the huge impact they're making on other populations without any regard for what it's going to do to not only personal health, but an entire construct of a society. So in effect, 3 retail companies decided to destroy an entire economy of a country and didn't think twice about it. I want to get people to wake up to this as part of what we do with our programming, with our education. The only way that we can make people care about problems that are happening halfway around the world is for you to start caring about what you're wearing and what you're doing, and affect the people that are directly around you. Don't worry about getting onto a large platform and shouting. Start buying and reading your labels. Start affecting the change in your tight community within you, your family, and the people you know. And I believe if everyone were to do that, it would affect a much larger change.
Thank you, Skaya. I believe that Dr. Kennedy, like to
It's just Kathleen, by the
Oh,
way.
sorry.
Hi, Mike. I think that there's 2 things that came out of this that we can build on, and it's an opportunity that we shouldn't miss, which is we've had a blinding example of how we're interconnected and how globalization actually happens that's hard for anybody to ignore. And that if we, and I mean the collective, we miss the opportunity to take the experience people have had in understanding how much of what we buy is produced by outsourced companies and how connected we are and how it's all one system. If we miss this opportunity, it'll be a huge loss in part of the world. But the other piece of it is it's not so simple as some people like to think, which is that it's not just a matter of not buying things or buying less. It's what do we do with the 3 billion people in the world who currently work in manufacturing jobs heavily in apparel and apparel related industries? What do those people do in a sustainable economy? And that's a real challenge, because we have not confronted this, and we had 200 years to do that and we avoided it. So to me, I know this sounds very simple, but when people walked out of their homes in Madrid and saw the blue sky, or because the air pollution level was down 50%, it was kind of a slap in the face that we haven't been living in a real and connected way. So there are little glimmers of hope happening. And when you have the Pope make a statement about the fact that we weren't living in a sustainable way and that caused problems, and we're living through those problems, perhaps as bad as this has been, it's sort of like there's an old movie probably nobody remembers but me on this panel called The Day the Earth Stood Still. We needed something to happen that would make us look at how we're living and the choices we're making and go back and rethink that. But that rethinking also has to involve outsourcing, and companies, not all those Bangladeshi employees didn't work for the companies that essentially fired them. And so there's this lack of responsibility corporately and by consumers who purchase things who don't understand how they're being done. But how do we rethink it? That's a different question, a much harder one.
Thank you so much. All right, I think we're ready to move on to our next question, Deanna.